Hi, this is Kevin, and welcome to my tutorial for Zelle Chapter 7, Exercise 2. And I wanted to remind you that in this particular situation, we're not doing the exercise from the textbook, but rather one that I cooked up myself. And Exercise 2 builds on our Exercise 1. And here's the skill we're trying to capture. We want to revise a program that uses the sentinel value pattern, not pattern, and a break statement so that it no longer uses the break statement. Okay? Make sure that the program works properly with no values input. Okay, so the code we had from exercise 1, it worked fine when we didn't have any input, so we already have that solved. We just don't want to break it. So we want to, in this example, we want to start with the code from exercise 1, and we want to remove the use of the break statement. All right, let's do that. So I'm just going to go to my editor for exercise 1, and I'm just going to take that code, okay, and copy it and paste it over here. Okay. Now, I just want to make sure I haven't broken anything, so I'm going to test it right off. Okay, so let's run a test. Let's see what happens if I stop right away. No values were entered. Okay, that's good. Let's run another test. And let's do -5, -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And no enter. Okay. So the count of values evenly divisible by 5 is 3. So we have +5, -5, and 0. That's good. Count of negative values were 5. So we had -5 through -1. That's good. Count of values greater than 100. None. Okay, it's great. Looks like we haven't broken anything. So I'm just going to close that so we get a little more real estate here. And so we want to get rid of this break statement, okay? And if we do that, then we're going to need a real test up here for, we're really going to be testing for end of file, okay? And also, well, first of all, let's go back to what's the motivation that we have for getting rid of break? Well, there are a certain group of programmers, myself among them, who subscribe to a style of programming called structured programming. And years ago, when we had older programming languages, you could do all kinds of ugly things to break the rules of structured programming. But now, in a language like Python, there are really very few things that you can do to break it. And the rules of structured programming said that every piece of code should have one entry point and one exit point. Well, as you can see, this while loop has two ways to exit. One is to exit when you do the compare, although it's not going to because it's always equal true. And then the other one is at the break. Okay, so maybe somebody could say, well, there's only one way to exit. I don't care. But there are a lot of us just think that break is a kind of a grand exit and kind of showboating and not to be used. Okay, so that's the motivation. All right, now how to do it? Well, you have to test for what you really want to be testing for. And what do we want to test? Well, we want to test for this if value as string is equal the empty string. Okay. Well, we might have the problem that if we do this here, we haven't really defined value as string before that. So we're going to pull this up and give it some value. I'll show you an easier approach. An easier approach is to create a Boolean indicator. Okay, and I'm going to call this one end of input. Not input. Okay, so when we start the program, have we come to the end of the input? No, we haven't. So it's false. Okay, and so now when we come down here, we're going to say while not end of input. Okay, while not end of input. Okay, well that's going to work fine. Okay, well now we don't want to break anymore. We just want to change the value of the indicator. So we're just going to say end of input equal true. End of input equal true. We're going to assign the value true to end of input. Okay. All right, now that makes sense. Okay. We've only got one problem here. Okay. And the problem is what really motivated the programmer who did the break to use the break before. And that is, well, we're about to dive into all this processing for the value that we just got. Well, we did, guess what? We didn't get a value. Okay. So if in fact we go to process it, we're likely to run into problems. Okay, either we're going to blow up because we're trying to access some value that we don't have, or perhaps we're going to bump up one of the counts when we didn't really want to bump up the count. There's all kinds of possibilities. So we only want to do the processing in the event that we haven't hit end of file. Well, we have a really easy way to do that, and that's this. We just say else, and then we take all the rest of the processing that is in this loop and make it hang off the else. That's it. Now, some people think this is a little bit hard to read. They go, well, you know, we have all this stuff which is within an else, which is within a while, and you know that makes me crazy. But when you convert it like we just did, it's pretty straightforward. So when we have this read at the top of the loop kind of approach, and we don't want that that magic break to be used, we can just do what we see here. Okay, turn this into a proper while that has a proper terminal condition. Okay, and then if we haven't hit the end of file, then all the processing that's in the loop is just hanging off of the else. It's not that hard to fix. Okay, so let's do a little bit of testing. Okay, let's see what we got. Come on, testing. Okay, first of all, what happens when we don't provide any input at all? Enter. No values were entered. Well, that's still working very, very well. Okay, let's do some processing. So let's run it again. And make that a little bigger. Okay, so let's put in some values. 0, -5, -55, -155, 12, 11, 100, 101. Okay, and then let's just plain enter, and we're done. Let's see. So 3 of the values were evenly divisible by 5. So that would be 0, -5, -55, -155. It's interesting. I would expect to be getting 4. Isn't 155 divisible by 5? That's worrisome. Okay. Negative values 3. Okay, that looks good. Counted values greater than 100. That doesn't look good either. So we have a 101, and we don't have anything there. So I'm not liking this, and I don't know how I broke it. So let's let's try that again. Okay, let's make sure everything's properly saved. And let's run it again. So let's 0, -155. There's 2 of them there, so that's working. You know, maybe I was running an old version of the program. Let's just let's do it again. 0, -1, -5, -55, -155, 101. Okay, negative values 1, 2, 3, 4. Evenly divisible by 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Values greater than 100. 0. It's not behaving well. Let's try it again. Now this is interesting. 101 is not working. This is bad. Okay. Now, there'll be a slight pause while I get myself out of trouble. I'll be right back. Well, you've probably already seen what the problem is here, and we missed it on the last test. So I had an uncut error, because if you look down here on line 29, we say count over 100 plus equals 0. Well, that doesn't bump it up by 1. It doesn't bump it up at all. So there's that. Okay. I don't know how I missed it in the last one. Let's go back and look. Yeah, same thing here down on line 26, plus equals 0. Well, that wasn't good testing, was it, Kevin? Well, this is really a case where it's going to be do as I say and not as I do, isn't it? All right. So I would have to, if I made a change to number 1, I'm going to have to retest it. I'm not going to bore you with that, but I will. And number 2, we're going to retest. And we should be okay now. So let's test the 100 function. Let's do 99, 100, 101, 102, 101 and 102. That's just fine. And one of those, 100 was evenly divisible by 5. Okay, so that works now too. All right, so let's just review what we did to the code. Okay. apart from fixing the bug that we had here on line 29, we got rid of this while true, and we created a Boolean variable to act as the indicator for what when the end of input had happened. We gave that an initial value of false because in the beginning we've not encountered the end of input. And then down here where we had the break, well, we simply set the end of input indicator to true, and that takes care of our loop here. And now we just have to make sure that we don't process a value that's not there after we've read and hit end of file. And we do that by putting all the processing on the else associated with the if that's checking for end of file. And that worked out just fine. And the nice thing about that is we did a little more thorough testing and we found an error. How about that? So that's it for that work right there. So I'll see you again in the next one. Bye for now.